Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up Warchant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi and Corey Clark.
What's going on, everybody? We're back. At least half of us. I'm Aslan. Ira Schofel joining us here on Wake Up Warchant on this Wednesday. Thanks for being here. Show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. And there are three great locations, over in College Town, Central, Madison Social, and Township. You're listening, of course, to ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Ira, thanks for being here on such short notice. How are you?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm a little bit, my mind, my heart are with Corey, though.
Yeah.
Corey's under the weather, so I'm glad to be here, Aslan.
Right.
I just wish it was under different circumstances.
Bittersweet, right?
Yeah.
Bittersweet. We've gone ahead and assigned Corey to the 15-day DL.
Oof.
Hopefully he'll be back. Maybe we'll retroactively maybe go back 10 days. Maybe he'll be back by the end of the week, but we're not going to rush it. It's the off season. You don't want to push the guys too hard this time of year, you know.
If it was a playoff run,
he'd be here.
He
would be here.
Yeah.
If they're gearing up for Samford right now on a sleepy Saturday in Tallahassee, a noon kickoff, he'd be in here. He'd be here going full bore. I'm a little bit worried about you. I feel like you're almost like Michael Langston. I feel like you don't get enough sleep, probably.
Me?
Yeah, you're always
I'm
awake.
not the one that's sick.
I know, but you're always awake, man. I feel like you're burning at both ends.
No, here's the thing.
Full time. You're grinding on the dad scene always. That's
the thing, though. What you got to understand is when you have kids, you kind of have to pick your spots. So, like, I have to be up early to get them to school. I've got to be there, for their activities. But during the day, sometimes you can catch a little cat nap. So you're not even at napping age yet, are you?
Oh, I know. Don't you even try that. I nap. I appreciate a good hearty nap,
I don't know if you're not like 40-ish. I don't know if you can appreciate, because I can like a 20-minute nap, man. I'm like, I'm gold.
I got you.
It's awesome. I don't need a 2-hour nap. Just like 20 minutes.
Right. I don't want to sit on the sofa for too long here, but, my folks always work, so they never came to my extracurricular activities and
stuff. I think it was a different generation. My family was the same way.
Yeah.
Now everybody's there. They feel like that's their life. They have to be there for the kids.
I remember the worst is in Jackson. I would go cover a lot of these private schools, which are very, upper crust. And there would always be the dads that would come in like straight out of the OR in their scrubs. So we get it. We get it. You're a doctor. We get it. They're the worst kind, man. But that's good. Go out there, support your kids in all their endeavors. How is your daughter doing? We talk about Brady plenty on the show.
Well, we got 3 kids, but 2 of them play sports.
The one that's balling, yo.
Well, this
Alexa.
Alexa's the middle one. She's playing basketball. They had open gym last night a little bit, but no, the youngest one had a softball game. City League softball. Took a loss in the bottom of the last inning. Scored on a wild pitch, which is kind of how that goes in those games.
I hear you.
A little wild pitch or an error or something like that.
Bad week for whoever's sitting in that chair. Brady had a tough loss as well, man. Hope you guys bounce back strong. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kids. So anyways, let's talk about sports. That's what people want to hear. If you do like the show, we do ask that you please go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, subscribe, unsubscribe, but then be sure, obviously, to resubscribe. So right now, the hot topic right now on warchant.com, you and Gene Williams, the founder and administrator of the website, kind of broke down the organizational look of Florida State's roster right now. Kind of went down position by position in terms of the classifications of all these players. I mean, what was one position there was like not even a junior at the spot. Was there anything that caught you by surprise kind of when you finally put all the names in the grid, offensive line, this many seniors, this many juniors, this many sophomores? Was there any position where you're like, dang, they need to get on the hop and start filling in some gaps?
Yeah, there are a couple gaps where, just they don't have anybody in that class for whatever reason. Either somebody transferred or got hurt or something like that. I thought when you look at it on paper, defensive end looks like really stout. They've got like 3 seniors and a couple, a junior, and a couple sophomores. And I was like, man, I watched that position this spring, and I felt like they're really thin, especially with Kendo being out. But truthfully, a couple of those guys are guys that have never really played. I mean, Adam Torres has been hurt. He's bounced around positions. Delvin Purifoy's been hurt. Started as a linebacker.
They're seniors.
5th-year seniors. But,
man,
so
get that stipend, boys. Get that stipend. Get that free gear.
So they're on the depth chart. So you look at it and you say, there's a couple of seniors there, along with, Wally Ame. Wally Ame, who moved over from defensive tackle. But Ame is probably the only one of those seniors who's going to be, you would think would be a real contributor based on what they've done so far. Otherwise, I think they're in pretty good shape. I mean, quarterback, obviously, we all know they're thin there, especially not knowing how healthy Francois is going to be. But otherwise, no, they're in pretty good shape. I mean, I think it's just helpful to kind of see it on paper, to see the entire position and see what they need recruiting-wise, because there are some spots where they're going to have to do a pretty good job in this recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I was out on the road doing the recruiting stuff. It was good times. And I was on my way back up. I was telling Corey this. I try not to listen to headlines that much anymore because I just don't want to co-opt the thoughts of one Jeff Cameron show, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. right here, ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
Corey and I like to say he co-ops our thoughts and puts them on his show from headlines. That's just an alternative viewpoint. I don't know. I don't know which way is the right one, but, just an alternative viewpoint.
So I was driving back from my sojourn with Michael Langston across this great state of ours, Sunshine State. By the way, stay tuned, folks. I don't think that's the last of the spring tour, but I don't want to give any spoilers. So if you're not a member on warchant.com, go ahead and sign up. So I'm downloading headlines, so I have something to listen to on the drive back up from Lakeland. And somehow, for whatever reason, whatever site I use to download the podcast.
Oh, I heard this. You heard from 5 years ago?
It's me on a 5-year-old podcast. And there was some hot takes.
And you killed me on Devontae Freeman. So what did I say?
No, I think Jeff
I didn't dog Devontae Freeman, did I?
Well, so I want to actually get into this part because, talking about the roster and the breakdown, you guys were walking into a really good radio topic. It was it was post-spring, Jameis's first spring, and it was also post-draft. So you kind of had an idea of what was coming back, and, obviously with the previous regime with Jimbo, true freshmen really didn't make an impact by and large. So you guys started talking about, well, let's size up each position and what's coming back. And then you get to running back. And it was one of those things where James Wilder was leaving, I think. Or no, this was going into the championship season. So Chris Thompson was gone. Lonnie Pryor was gone. And I was like, well, dang, those are two really good.
Chris Thompson had a really good last year.
Yeah, those are really good pieces. And it was one of those things where, like, well, how can they be any better after you lose those two guys? And Jeff's like, well, I don't know, am I crazy? Or I don't want to pump up Jeff too much. But Jeff was just like, shoot, I think he's actually going to be pretty good, man. I think he's going to be a really solid Division I high-end Power 5 running back. And you're like, yeah, he's all right. But you're just kind of like, well, listen, when you lose a guy like Chris Thompson, which was a valid point.
I knew he wouldn't be the home run hitter. I didn't think he'd be the home run hitter Chris Thompson was. And Chris Thompson, I think it was his last year when he had those runs against Miami where he had an 80-yard run, they called it back, and they just ran another 80-yard run.
Yeah.
I mean, when he got healthy finally, he was phenomenal. So I just figured you wouldn't have that game-breaking ability. I didn't realize Devontae would be that tough between the tackles, and one of those guys.
No, I didn't either. I'm not casting stones at you, friend.
No, I know. I heard it, and I was like, did I really dog Devontae Freeman? But then I was trying to remember what I would have thought.
You didn't dog him. You're just tapping brakes. You're like, all right, come on, Jeff. Like, all right, he's decent, but come on, man. He's not next work done or anything like that.
I'd like to go back and listen to that episode. I mean, really, that's the thing. It's funny you bring that up because when I heard that, I was like, man, you could probably go back and listen to every show we did and find something that was just like, man, these guys are idiots.
Oh, no.
Well, no, I just think it's just the nature of the beast. Yeah. Because I was telling Corey the other night that I was listening to your boy, Ryan Russillo, on Bill Simmons' podcast. Did you hear that? A week or two ago?
I did not hear that, no.
So they did a podcast. It was during the NFL draft, and they taught some NBA. But Bill Simmons and Russillo, two Boston guys, both basically said they expected the Sixers to sweep the Celtics.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, well, we all have our moments.
Yeah, Corey and I were talking about it. We diverted into some sort of NBA talk, and I was like, I don't know. LeBron's going to have to get past the Sixers. We'll see youth versus experience. He's like, well, I'm not too sure they're going to even make it past the Celtics. I'm like, So I do actually, because Russillo's whole thing, was like, I don't think the Sixers are going to be good because they're defensively, they won't be good enough because they're too young. He said this in the beginning of the season, and obviously they had a good run, and it's probably going to come to an end here in Boston. But again, looking at this roster now, you've seen it in this sort of way because you've gone position by position, year by year. So, I guess let's start. I don't really want to start at quarterback because this has to be a better quarterback unit than it was in 17, right? That's the conversation you guys are kind of getting into. What you had last year, what you have this year. Forget so much what you saw in spring or anything like that, but just in terms of the talent that's there. Quarterback position is going to be about the darn same, right? Obviously it's going to be Francois or Blackman most likely. Maybe Hoffman slides in there.
But at least you have options and you have competition. I think that's the problem they had last year was once Francois got hurt and Hoffman had been banged up in camp and JJ wasn't really a viable option, it kind of became Blackman no matter what. I remember at one point when Blackman started turning it over in kind of the middle of the season, I remember asking Jimbo, because he came back and had a pretty good game. I was like, were you close to maybe making a change? And he said, well, you think about it, but we didn't, and it worked out. But really, they didn't have any options.
What would they have done? Rizzo? Costantino? Like JJ?
I guess maybe if Bailey's healthy at that point, and you just give it a whirl. I don't know.
Yeah, burn the shirt.
Give it a different look. Just going from going from the left hand. But I don't know. I just think that is the one positive here is you're always better when you've got competition. you're always feel, I think, better as a coaching staff when you have an option.
Right.
And I feel like the last few years, I feel like they haven't had options. I mean, Golson and Smag, those were your options that one year. But
that show actually was the first time that Smag was christened. Solid show. And then running back has to be better. I mean, this is another position. They're all coming back, but I mean, shoot, with what we, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but at the same time, I think Jimbo would talk about it sometimes. I even think Saban would try to deflect, and it's like, come on, man, don't shovel this my way, Saban. About the media, how we bury kids if they don't do anything after a year or two, right? Like we know, like some guys take longer to progress and develop, but in the middle of this, fire drill of a season that was going down last year, you figure to be all hands on deck, throw anybody out there that can make a play. Well, if Kalen LeBourne's not out there, then hey, maybe he's from Virginia Beach, which there's some talent out there, but you're like, maybe he's going to need a year or so to develop. So he redshirts, and then Cam Akers has this record-setting year, so you kind of forget about him. But I mean, golly, with the way he looked in that spring game, and then
Willie's talking him up on the tour. I mean, you've been on the tour. Well, yeah, I think we heard him
in Panama
City. He talked about it, and I heard him talk about it at another stop as well, where he's just like, he told the story about how Laborn wanted to take his red shirt off at the bowl game.
Oh, yeah.
That's how bad he wanted to play. Was willing to risk a whole season just to go play in that one game. And then, and then he's talked about, he's brought him up when people have asked about the running backs. He's made a point to bring him up. So it's not like he just had a spring game, because there's been guys that'll have like a big play or two in a spring, and then coaches.
Goodman.
Yeah,
Richard Goodman.
Richard Goodman was the key, the summer workout guy.
Yeah, he was.
Remember
he actually hung on for a few years on the roster though, so I should have dogged him. Yeah, shout out Richard Goodman.
But he dusted Antonio Cromartie that summer, and that was because we used to be able to watch the summer workouts, and everybody freaked out, and it took a while for him to do a whole lot in the games. But Willie has not pumped the brakes at all with Laborn, and I mean, he's a 5-star guy. He should be good, you would think, but I don't think it's. You're not being reactionary by saying that he's got a chance to be a real weapon. The other thing Willie Taggart keeps talking about is, and I don't know why, I haven't decided if I'm going to call him Willie or Taggart.
Okay. Yeah, we need to have a discussion about that. So I'm kind of going with
the both, because I feel like I don't know.
Never call Fisher. It's Jimbo, right?
Yeah.
Even the players called him Jimbo, which I never liked.
I didn't like that either.
But that's neither here nor there.
But Willie, I don't know. Willie seems very casual.
Yeah. I want to call him I like to call him Tags.
Tags.
We'll call him Taggart. Well, I think Taggart. There is a skit that I need to play from Entourage, the show, the TV show on HBO.
Yeah, I watched every episode.
Every time I hear people just yell Taggart, or like their Taggart era, and I'm just like, I think of this scene, and it makes me giggle. Maybe I'll pop it up on the next segment. Let's talk about the kids though, because they say real recognize real, right, Ira? Even one of the prospects that we talked to at IMG Academy was giving a big shout out to Kalen LeBourne, and said that basically, he saw the way that he sees the way this offense is being run, and you got Cam and Kalen. He's like, they're going to be deadly, he said. So I want to talk about something I kind of observed when talking to these kids on the recruiting trip. So yeah, we'll talk about that. Ira Schoffel joining me today on this Wednesday edition of Wake Up Warchant. I'll be right back after this.
You're locked in to Wake Up Warchant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. I'm Aslan. Ira Schoffel in for Corey Clark. He's on the men. Corey, man, hope you get better, bud. The show is Wake Up Warchant right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and the 3 great locations over in the Collegetown District. I'm not going to play the scene from Entourage, folks, but just go ahead and just Google Johnny Drama, Entourage, or Entourage Taggart. I think it's funny. Maybe you'll get some enjoyment out of it.
I'm my favorite. I am my favorite kind of pinch hitter. Like, my favorite kind of pinch hitter is like the dude who's like, his time has come.
Right.
He's like aging, doesn't really have much left in the tank. But if Corey's sick,
Francisco Cabrera kind of?
Rusty Staub. That's what I'm thinking. Rusty Staub in the later years of the Mets.
Okay, it's a little before my time, I think.
Look him up. It's the later years. Anyway, just the, you just old reliable, call Ira out.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
I'm here for Corey.
I wanted to pull in like somebody off Florida State, but I feel like I've never seen anybody from Florida State pinch hit and do well.
Oh,
I'm sure there's somebody, but yeah, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Let's talk about football. It's what the people want to hear. All right, so the funny thing I was thinking about, it's not funny, but this is what I was, this is kind of the thought in my head. As Michael Langston was interviewing all these prospects during the spring tour that we're doing, a lot of these kids talk about Florida State was my dream school, grew up watching Florida State. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dang, what? You're in like
don't test them.
Like Drew Weatherford, Christian Ponder throwing to Burt Reed. Like that is the penultimate memories of your childhood.
Yeah, don't do the math when kids say that.
So I'm thinking, I'm like, what? I guess this is a good thing. So Bobby, because the thing is, Bowden kept the thing going. We thought kept it going recruiting wise. It was still ranked highly because there was still his name on the program. But then you're thinking, you're like, dang, Florida with Tebow and all that, what they were rolling with while this program was slipping, you're like, maybe at some point the chickens are going to come to roost on this because kids are going to grow up and not remember Florida State being great. But that's obviously not a problem. These kids, so he asks John Dunmore, this really talented wide receiver down in Hollywood, Florida, Hollywood Chaminade, hey, you talk about Florida State being your dream school. Like, who's your favorite? Oh, man, watching Florida State growing up, man, I was always a big fan. Who's your favorite player? Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin. He was here like 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, this kid's, 17.
He's 18. 14 years old.
Well, but dude, if you started watching football, a lot of those kids don't really start watching football till they're in middle school. So
right.
It's growing up. Not everybody started watching it when they were 7 or 8.
But that's my thing. Like, growing up, I watched Joe Montana. Like, growing up, I didn't watch Tom Brady. I mean, I could say that. I mean, Tom Brady in 2001 won a Super Bowl. I was in college, but I feel like, to me, I don't know, like, that's the thing. Like, growing up watching, to me, that's 6, 7, 8. Like, under the age 10, to me, is like, I grew up watching.
I do think.
Not that you stopped growing at age 17, 16.
I get your point. But I also think there's the other thing at play is, Florida State, the uniform, the colors, the horse, the whole, game day experience.
Beautiful damn horse.
I think that's kind of, and the fact that Florida State's always had that cachet and that name brand, so they're always on ESPN and, national television, and even when they're not good, they're hyped up. So I think maybe that's part of it too. It's like they're a program that you see and you're like, oh, that's a cool program. Right. So I think that's part of it too. Even though, as you said, I mean, if those kids were, when those kids were 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, 10, it may not have been the best. Might not have been the best of times for Florida State football.
I just want one of these kids to say, I remember Xavier Lee throwing to Cody Fagg at Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville and taking down Nick Saban. From that day, I decided I was going to be a Florida State fan. My thing is, and Corey disagrees, and I know you're going to disagree about it, but I don't think the University of Florida is as bulletproof as everybody keeps talking about. I mean, we've seen Tennessee fall into doldrums. I mean, I don't know if you can really say Georgia fell into the doldrums. The SEC had a weird sort of, revisionist history where they're the best teams ever. And it's like, man, growing up, me as a kid growing up, Georgia sucked. Alabama sucked. Auburn sucked. I mean, LSU was, come on, like Florida LSU was just Florida's going to, stomp on LSU. And they would talk about, back, in 1960, Billy Cannon, and there was an earthquake and the valley shook again. Whatever. LSU's terrible. You're not winning anything. So I just don't know. I mean, because when I was in Jackson 4 or 5 years ago covering sports, those kids loved Florida. Everyone loved Tebow. These kids grew up. So these kids, quote, grew up watching Tebow, which kind of made sense. Like, all right, you're like 10, 12 years old watching Tim Tebow play. But I just don't know. I mean, Dan Mullen has done really good things at Mississippi State with less quality of ingredients that he's going to have at Florida. But, like, is there no possibility? Again, I mean, you're going to disagree. You can. It's fine. Like, there's no possibility that they could fall into some sort of slump where they're not going to develop that sort of teen idol player that's going to keep younger kids engaged. And I don't know, maybe they'll be a more exciting team to watch now that Dan Mullen is there. But, like, is there any chance that they could just keep screwing this up and then irrevocably, is that the word? I can't even pronounce it right. Do damage?
I don't know about irrevocably, but I do think they could continue what they've been doing, which is sucking. I mean, really, you look back, it's been years. I look back, I can't remember how many years it is. There's like 1 year in the last like 5 or 6 or 7 that they've been like in the top 100 offensively. I mean, if you go like look at the top 100 offenses, either total offense or scoring offense, they've been like in the 110s, 115, 100s almost every single year since Urban Meyer, since it went downhill at the end of Meyer's tenure. They've been awful. And so, I think that can continue. I don't know if it will. I mean, I think Dan Mullen, like you said, is probably a better coach than they've had there the last couple of guys. But it's been a minute since they've been good, since they've had a marquee weapon. They had a little run there with the quarterback that got kicked out. But other than that,
Will Greer.
But, I mean, that had a potential.
It did. I was there for that, Ira. I was in Gainesville for that Ole Miss game. My buddy was coming to cover it out of Jackson. I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to go to the swamp and watch them get destroyed. Ole Miss had just beaten Alabama.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, uh-oh. Oh, no, they're back.
This kid can sling it.
They're back. Damn it.
But, the other thing is Florida.
Steroids. Wrong. Beat it. Beat it, kid. Beat it.
But the thing is about Florida, look, when I was in school, I'm older than you are, obviously. When I was in school, Florida was not very good.
They really
they had never won the SEC. Like when Spurrier turned it around, they had been awful, not awful, but average to below average most of the time for years and years and years. And even when they had a good year, they always underachieved. They could not win the SEC. Yeah. It's not like they're not the level of an Alabama. The thing I would say about Alabama is even when they've been down, you knew the passion is there and the money's there. At some point, somebody's going to do the right thing. I don't know that Florida's not at that level. They do have a great talent in the state, and that helps buoy any problems. But no, I don't think they're impervious by any stretch.
97.9 ESPN Radio here in Tallahassee. Aslan Ira's Wake Up Warchant. Florida has not finished better than number 100 in scoring offense in 3 of the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's really bad.
Top 100.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Alabama just kept hiring bad guys. I don't, as much as it's so. I don't see the same way that I don't see any sort of middle ground with Willie. I don't see Willie going 9-3, 10-2, 8-5, 11-1. I don't see that sort of happening. It's either going to be a real big boom quickly, or it's just going to kind of be 8-5, 9-3, and I don't know if that'll ultimately keep you there. Well, like Dan Mullen, it's just, he built Mississippi State up, but they never took like that next step. They had the one season, but then they quickly sort of, squandered that away in 2014 when they were the number 1 team in the nation for a few weeks, and he had a transcendent quarterback, at least in Mississippi State sort of history.
Did you think Dak Prescott would be what he's become?
No, absolutely
I didn't
not.
see it at all.
And I've had to bite my tongue on Twitter so bad. I've been waiting because being there, all these Mississippi State fans just swinging from Dak's this, Dak's. I'm like, oh yeah, wait till he gets to the NFL. It ain't going to happen. And then there was a couple talent folks that said that he should probably look at playing tight end in the league. He's not going to be a quarterback. And then that rookie year of his, all the Mississippi State fans I still follow on Twitter just like, yeah, maybe he should move to tight end, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we get it. So it was kind of good to see him kind of come back down to earth a little bit.
It was a perfect spot. He really could not have fallen into a better spot that first year. Yeah. With everything they had and, what he could do off of the running game. But no, I didn't see that at all. But that's the thing. I think the concern you'd have about Mullen is, if he does get talent, if he gets, you talked about John Dunmore. That's one of those guys that's a Florida guy. Maybe Miami or somebody else is in the mix too, but he's probably going to be down to Florida State and Florida. It's a big-time receiver. He's like 6'3" or something.
Yeah. And I want to be that guy. He plays bigger, though. Like, he's quite slight. He's 6'3", 170, so he looks quite slight and slender, but he goes up and gets it. He plays big.
Yeah, and so, you start getting a couple of those pieces, then you start attracting a quarterback, and,
and he'll get a quarterback. I think that's that Emory Jones. I think that might be the kid's name. They're saying that he might be and listen, he's going to develop a quarterback, but he's never won big games. Like when he's had the opportunity to take that next step. I guess you could say against Auburn in 2014, that was number 2 versus number 5 or something. Mississippi, I want to almost say Mississippi State was number 3 at that point. But that felt like that was a smoke and mirrors garbage Auburn team. That was Auburn because they came off the national title appearance in Gus Malzahn's first season. So everybody thought, well, geez, Nick Marshall's back. They're all back. 2 years. They'll all be better. And they weren't really that great of or impressive of a team. So
no, they started sliding.
Yeah, so they quickly slid. So, it wasn't anything that, impressive, their sort of rise when you really think about it and look at it that season.
I will say, I don't know how much you pay attention to coaching staffs at a school that you don't really follow, but I've got a couple of friends who
all of them. I know all about Oregon State's coaching staff. You want to talk about it?
But a couple of friends of mine who are Florida fans, who guys I've known for a long time, are like crowing about that staff. They feel like this is the first time that they've got a staff that's as good or better than Florida State in a long time, since Urban Meyer was there. So that's something to look at. If they've put together a really good staff around him, maybe that helps him get over the hump that you're talking about. Because I agree with you. They've been on the precipice. They've been hyped. How did they get? They didn't get to number 1, did they? That year, were they Mississippi State?
What 2014?
They were number 1.
Yes, they were when the first college football playoff poll came out. They were 1. Ole Miss was 4. I think Auburn was still 3. They still hung out in there, and I think Florida State was 2.
Yeah, but
coaching staffs.
But if this staff is what Florida fans think it is, they think he gave me some stat about how many of those guys have rings. They got Sunseri, who's a former, he was here. He did a good job. I mean, Sal Sunseri was a quality assistant coach, but
he was. No, I miss Sal.
He did a really good job.
Yeah, I don't want to denigrate Sal. No, props to him. But I just know. I mean, he's got a lot of rings because he was in Alabama too, and he has that Nick Saban, so that kind of seems a birds of a feather.
So that can, But anyway, so if the staff is solid, and then you got a better recruiting base, and if you assume he's developed as a coach, I mean, I think that's the thing that, and I know you guys have talked about it, and we talked about it in the headlines. This really does have a chance to be, maybe another golden era for the state, because it's been a long time since all three have had competent staffs. I mean, Randy Shannon, Coker. I mean, there were Miami had their issues with
Al Golden.
I mean, they just weren't competently coached.
Yeah.
Florida's had similar issues, or the last guy couldn't recruit. Now, everything's kind of starting to come together. So, I think Willie Taggart, and I know the point you made about Willie Taggart should beat these guys head to head in recruiting, especially with the staff he has and kind of the vibe, the culture that you've heard so much about.
Right.
That, Florida State is going to be the kind of the cool school right now, and I think that's going to pay off in recruiting. But I think the issue is, Willie's going to have a tougher road, I think, than probably Jimbo did, where he was kind of going up Miami and Florida when they were kind of going through struggles. I don't know if Willie's going to have that luxury.
Let's talk about that next when we come back, Ira. It's 97.9 ESPN Radio. It's Wake Up Warchant. We'll be right back.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome back, folks. It's Wake Up Warchant. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, Director of Digital Media for Warchant.com. Joining me today, Ira Schofel, the Managing Editor of Warchant.com. And Ira, I know it's your job to be the news guy here, but I got some breaking news.
Sweet.
Hey, man, so I have strep. Won't be able to do the show tomorrow either. It's Corey. So Corey's going to be gone. We won't have him on Thursday either. Maybe
you ever had strep throat?
I thought I had it last year in Dothan. But then I was diagnosed with the ick. I'm like, excuse me?
That's a diagnosis?
Yeah, they're like, oh, no, you don't have strep. I'm like, what do I have? I'm like, I remember.
That's a diagnosis in Dothan.
When you saw
me.
Like
in the state of Florida, they don't diagnose it.
No, they don't do that. When I saw you in Atlanta for the Alabama game, I was on I was struggling. That Friday night, I sweat so bad doing our Friday night football show that it went through my shirt and into my blazer. It looked like I jumped into a pool. I had like 103-degree fever on that Wednesday that week, and I was miserably sick. And I looked at my tonsils; they had like white on them. Sorry, I know it's a morning show. Anyhow, I go to the doctor. I'm like, I've got a fever. I got that. I got it's got to be strep. And they're like, they run off the cultures. I'm like, just. Well, the good news, you don't have strep. I'm like, well, then what do I have? Like, well, just got the ick, honey. And I'm like, what?
Do you think they really had a medical license?
That's what I'm like. Where's it? Like, you're gonna? This is a house of learned men and women.
I have fish that had the ick. I think ick is something that fish get. That's crazy. No, but I've never had strep. I did one time. I went into the doctor and I was convinced I must have strep.
Yeah.
I don't know what strep is, but I must have it because I am awful. And they're like, no, you don't have strep. I was like mad.
It's bizarre.
Test it again. Take another culture.
Exactly. Yeah. Take it to another lab. All right. So sizing up the guys, the school down south. Get ready for that. So we're going to call the school out. We call the school out west. Is that what Urban said? Freaking losers. So they got Dan Mullen, obviously head coach. Todd Grantham as the defensive coordinator is a weird. I don't know how you want to size him up because he did a really good job at Louisville, and he did a good job with Dan Mullen at Mississippi State last year. The year prior, they had Peter Sermon, who played. He's from Southern Cal. I think he actually played linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. Their defense was pretty bad, and nobody, like all the Mississippi State fans, hated him. They did a swap. They really.
I remember that. That's right.
He went to Louisville, and then Grantham came down to Starkville. It was bizarre.
And it seems like, but it's like one of those guys.
And I think Petrino got rid of him too. I think
what I'm saying.
One and done.
That's the thing at Grantham is like he seems like one of those guys that will do well and get fired, or do well and then wear as welcome. Like it's never.
Right.
He's never had like a long run anywhere. I don't think.
I remember he was at Georgia for a while too. And I think he went to the NFL, and then he came back and. Yeah, he jumped all around the place, man. And then their offensive line coach is John Hevesy, which we talked about on the show earlier. And all the Mississippi State fans couldn't stand him. Wide receivers coach Billy Gonzalez, I think, actually was on the staff with him.
Meyer before.
Yeah.
Isn't he the one that Percy Harvin allegedly punched? I think he's the one that there was some sort of issue with Percy Harvin.
Good times. Greg Knox, who's a good recruiter, at least he was a good recruiter in Mississippi. I don't know how much, cachet he has in Florida. Then Sal Sinceri, Ron English, which I think was a head coach at one of the directional Michigan schools, or maybe the defense coordinator in Michigan. I mean, they got some guys there. I mean, they definitely do have some firepower there. I mean, I guess that was the thing, right? Muschamp, for however talented he was defensively, just, hitched his wagon to Kurt Roper, and then, Charlie Weiss, too. Like, Charlie Weiss was, on paper, I remember, you want to talk about cold takes exposed, when he hired Charlie Weiss, and then Jimbo hires Mark Stoops. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, they're done. They have sunk our battleship. Charlie Weiss. I literally think I went on the tribal council club level where it's just nothing but rainbows and lollipops. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? I think he's going to run circles around Mark Stoops. You guys are crazy. And Mark Stoops like, shut him down.
What we didn't know about Charlie was that he was
schematic advantage, didn't travel down to Gainesville.
He was way past his prime. He was talking about a guy that was just cashing checks at that point. I remember at the game, like you'd see him on the sideline, he'd be sitting down on a cooler and whatever. And it's like, dude, you can't be sitting down. Like, come on, have some some pride. Stand up.
Right. So you're talking about these coaches. It's not the Stooges running around the state of Florida like it was during the heyday when Jimbo was running roughshod. And listen, this is throwing stones in a glass house because we don't really know anything about Willie and big game experience. But Mark Richt's not a big game coach. I don't think Mark Richt has developed any sort of reputation as a big game coach. Dan Mullen hasn't. Dan Mullen never even held a lead on Alabama. And I say it almost half joking. I think Florida State was one of only 3 teams that had a lead on Alabama last year. Georgia had on them in the first half, and then Auburn ultimately beat them. Otherwise, they just throttled everybody last year. Florida State actually, maybe Sanford Samuels is not rolling over. Who knows what happens in that game? But anywho, we'll kind of see maybe where Willie's big game sort of, talent falls in. But like Dan Mullen started slipping bad once Hugh Freeze took over at Ole Miss. He brags and pounded his chest about how he dominated Ole Miss because he was beating Houston Nutt. He beat Houston Nutt 3 years in a row. Like, congratulations, man. You beat Houston Nutt. That's something to brag about. And then Mark Richt, never won the SEC, I think, once, twice, if that, maybe sure. Once. I don't even know if he won the SEC. I should pull that up while I'm talking about this. But again, I just don't know how much. I don't know if it's minimizing what Jimbo did because everyone talks about how down Florida and Miami were. And then I agree, these are more competent head coaches, but I don't know if.
Well, the jury's out on Mark Richt at Miami. Last year, again, we all knew at the time that team was not as dynamic as it looked. They were playing kind of above their heads.
Turn of a chain.
They were playing above their heads a little bit. They had some big breaks go their way. They made some big plays, some big moments. I do think he's going to be a competent coach, though, and they didn't have that. He's going to do a good job. They've got the kids. The kids are bought in. They're doing a much better job in recruiting, so they've got better talent. So I think they're going to be at a higher level consistently than they had been the last.
Yeah, I'm not. Is it Corey or it's Corey that
Corey thought Miami
there's
would
no
never
way
be back.
Miami's ever. Yeah,
he thought they were done. It was never going to happen again. And it's not going to be like it was in the 80s.
Right.
But they can be really good.
They could be with Marco. They could be really good. They're one tier, I think, away of a head coach or just some. I think Willie in Miami would be scary. If he only has to drive 5 minutes to get all the great talent from Dade Broward, that'd be scary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't really know we don't know for sure about any of these guys. Mullen's probably got the most, I don't know, I would say the most proven track record because he's at least been in that conference for a long time.
What's more impressive, making Mississippi State no longer a laughingstock or taking Georgia to the precipice several times? They won the conference title twice, 2002, 2005.
But that was a long time ago. Yeah, we should have known 2002 because that was
we were there.
But
catch the ball, Talman, catch it. And Quanter is beautiful.
But yeah, I don't know if I do think Miami's going to be solid. I don't know that they're ever going to get over the hump. To your point, he didn't do it at Georgia. Right. I don't know that he's going to do it at Miami. I wouldn't predict he is. I don't think that I don't see Miami being a playoff team necessarily anytime soon.
They'll get the chance, though, right? Because the Coastal, I mean,
that is a big part of it.
You just got to get past Virginia Tech every year, and you'll probably have a chance to
and then you just got
to
have a big game against Florida State or Clemson.
Yeah. Maybe Louisville. Although I don't know, maybe Louisville, Lamar Jackson being gone, I don't know. So that's the thing when I size these guys up. But then, I mean, you can't discount what Dan Mullen did with what he had in Mississippi, and you figure at Florida he's going to get, I mean, just as good players, if not better. Obviously, I think. I mean, this Emory Jones kid, I hope I'm saying his name right, I think is obviously coming in more decorated than Dak Prescott did. I mean, Dak Prescott was from, suburban Shreveport. Is that such a thing, the suburban Shreveport? But he's from a town outside of Shreveport. I mean, LSU didn't want him. LSU didn't want him until it was way too late, until it was like 2 weeks left in signing day, unless he told Les Miles to go take a hike.
What wasn't there a period where Mullen was kind of like on thin ice a little bit? Like they were kind of starting to think, well, maybe this isn't going to be. I thought they kind of had a dip where it was like
13 was because 12 they started off 7-0. They were 11th in the BCS. Then they went to Alabama and got smoked. They got throttled. And 13, they did not have a really good season. So it was one of those things where
it just seemed like it was stalling, and it wasn't.
Yes.
It still wasn't going in the right direction.
Because he had Tyler Russell, who was a parade All-American quarterback from Mississippi. He beat this program in Mississippi that had 90 consecutive wins. He beat them in the state championship game. Parade All-American, committed to Mississippi State.
Can't miss.
Right. So he was a redshirt junior, or maybe that was a senior year in 13. And it was like, well, dude, like this is the year. It's all going to line up, and it did not line up at all. And I think that's when people are like, well, it's just, are we fine being an 8-win team?
He's done what he's going to do.
Yeah, he peaked.
But then 3 years later, he gets the Florida job. I mean, that's just kind of.
Well, the nature of the beast, we talk about, Florida just is always going to be able to figure it out eventually, you would think. But, like, just the nature of the beast, with the way it gets churned and you keep going, all these coaching searches, like, these are the guys they've ended up with. I mean, they ended up with Will Muschamp, which this is total revisionist history. I was scared when they hired Muschamp. Yeah. I mean, Muschamp had coaching waiting in Texas. I'm like, damn. Like, him in Florida, that's scary. But it wasn't. They hired Jim McElwain. You're like, well, he's got the pedigree of winning a national title with Nick Saban. His offense. Nothing. Yeah. And then, so I don't know, like, with the way it churns. And listen, he when that job came open, when McElwain was, he's wanted that job. They didn't want him. They wanted Hugh Freeze. I mean, they went through, they didn't go after him. They didn't want him this time around. It's his third choice this time around, too. 97.9 ESPN Radio in Tallahassee here. He's our Amazon. So, yeah, I don't know just, how daunting it's going to be because, I talked about that photo that I put on the tribal council, these two coaches.
I guess what I would say is Willie Taggart, Coach Bowden's strength was with the moms and the grandmothers. Right. He would go in the house and he would charm the moms, the grandmothers. A lot of times that's the decision maker.
Did you see that video? I think it was Xavier Rhodes talking about when he was getting recruited.
Oh,
like his mom or his grandma got all dressed up for Bowden.
Flirting with him?
Yeah.
Or was his aunt or something? Yeah, she was like flirting with Coach Bowden. Yeah. And then, Jimbo was really good about – what Jimbo was really good about was figuring out who the decision maker was. That was like the key to his recruiting success, I think, besides being a good evaluator, was he would find out through research who's going to make the decision. Is it the girlfriend? Is it the mom? Is it the uncle? Is it the the runner? Who's the person we got to get with here? And he would do a great job with that person. Willie, the direct line he's got with these kids is different than really any of these people have had. I mean, Coach Bowden didn't have that. Certainly not in his later years. Yeah. Coach, a lot of times those kids were going to Coach, but they knew he was a legend, but their parents were the ones who really wanted him to go play for him. They wanted to be in part of that program. Certainly Jimbo, same type of thing. I don't think he always connected with the kids the way Willie Taggart does. So this is different. And now you add into it the cachet that Florida State has. Even when they had Weatherford playing, they were these kids' dream schools. And then you tack into it again with a quality staff of recruiters. A lot of guys who are very good recruiters have been good recruiters wherever they've been. I mean, I do think Florida State has a chance to stockpile talent like they probably haven't in a long, long, long time. Now, what he does with it, we'll see. And that brings, that always comes with their own issues. I mean, sometimes you have all these 5 stars and 4 stars, and sometimes they don't. The chemistry's not right. So that's not always the 100% answer, but you like your chances.
Right. There is one concern I do have about how he's going to connect with players and how it'll all work out. We'll talk about that as we wrap up the program. It's Wake Up Warchant. It's 97.9 ESPN Radio in Tallahassee.
You're locked in to Wake Up Warchant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Final segment on this Wednesday. It's Wake Up Warchant. I'm Aslan. He's Irish Afel. This is 97.9 ESPN Radio. Wake Up Warchant brought to you by For the Table Hospitality and their 3 great locations over in the College Town District. So this is sort of my hesitation or whatnot with Willie's recruiting prowess, and I've talked about it in different sort of permeations of, comparing him to Jimbo. And I just feel like a lot of these players that we spoke with, I don't want to say these are fringe guys, but I don't feel like a lot of the guys that I'd went on the spring trip with Michael Langston, these weren't the guys that Alabama is thick and heavy with. There's a couple of the guys. I remember one of the players, I don't want to say his name, I mean, it probably isn't a big deal, but one of the players in particular, they were talking about Alabama was on him. He's like, yeah, they want me to visit, but I ain't going. I think he was saying that his mom wants him to go to Alabama, or his mom wants him to look at Alabama. He's like, I ain't going to Alabama. And I'm like, you mind if I ask you, like, why you don't want to go to Alabama? Like, it's fine. I'm not judging you on him. And he was just like, I don't know, man. I just don't want to go. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's not for everybody. It's just not. But, we always talk about, that 2010 recruiting class that kind of changed everything around here. LaMarcus Jordan was that first guy that Jimbo kind of got on board and things dominoed from there. I feel like I don't know what Willie's selling these guys, but what it kind of it feels like, the vibe, the culture that we keep hearing about. The kids that want to have fun, love football, want to stay close to home, like it's going to be a good sort of match. But those, say like the Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of kid, where they're going to have to pull out of New Jersey. And listen, I know he pulled Jaden Woodby out of California, so I get it.
Well, Jimbo didn't get Minkah either.
Yeah, we thought he was going to get him, right? I remember reading on the damn message boards. I thought, we're going to make a Fitzpatrick.
No, I think he had led him to believe he was coming, but he didn't.
Right.
He actually, oddly enough, this is just such a weird little thing. He followed me on Twitter briefly.
Minkah Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, and at the time I was like, well, that's weird. He must be coming to Florida State. Why would this guy follow? Because I'm not even a recruiting guy.
Yeah.
And I might not even been a Warchant. I might have been the Democrat. What year would he have signed?
14?
No, I was over at Warchant. But anyway, so he followed me, and I was like, well, that's got to be a really
15.
good sign.
He's like Derwin. He went 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, I was definitely at Warchant. But he was like, I was thinking, well, that's really got to be a good sign for Florida State. And then I talked to somebody, they're like, oh, yeah, I think we're going to get him. And then, of course, he ends up at Alabama. Yeah. But no, I mean, I understand what your point is. I mean, I get. Well, you continue your point.
Well, there's different motivation. I think there's a certain caliber of athlete that they'll appreciate Willie's the way he's got about him. They'll appreciate that, but I think ultimately they'll look at a Saban. And I mean, I don't really say Dabo because I think Dabo and Willie are one and the same. But I think there's going to be, you had to pull Jameis out of Alabama to get it done here, right? You're going to have to get that guy that is a huge talent swing that Alabama would love to have, and you're going to have to steal guys from Alabama to win. And I don't know how many the players that gravitate towards that Alabama program and end up being successful at Alabama they're not focused on the external sort of. It's more the intrinsic. Like they want to be coached at the highest level. They want to get mama a new house. I know that's like on Marvin Wilson's Twitter handle or Twitter page or whatever, like get mama a new house.
Well, let me say one thing about that.
That's
too.
what kind of gives me the pause. Like, I don't know if he'll get that kind of dog. He's going to get dogs, but like you need that kind of dog too.
Let me say one thing about that class, the Jameis class. I've never spoken about this. I've never tweeted it.
Exclusive on Wake Up Warchant.
Wake Up Warchant doing it here. So the two guys that kind of put that class together, as much as Jimbo Fisher and Damian Craig, were Antonor Winston and Mario Edwards Sr. Those two guys hit it off early on in the recruiting process and basically decided they want to go together and their kids want to win national titles, and they went out and helped Jimbo and Damian Craig and that staff get Ronald Darby, get all those guys that they pulled together in that class. They basically kind of were like co-recruiting coordinators. So now you had, because you always hear about the players helping recruit for the coaches, because you have the head coach, you've got 9 or 10 assistant coaches now, and then the players sometimes help recruit. Well, they had these two dads who were also, it was like another level, and Antonor Winston and Mario Edwards Sr. desperately wanted that team. They knew which players they were going to get. I mean, they kind of feel like they helped recruit that class. And so my point is something like that can just evolve. It doesn't have to, again, I think we gave Jimbo a lot of credit when they won the national title, but he probably doesn't deserve all the credit. And Willie Taggart's probably not going to be able to do it by himself. But I will say that I think the cool thing about Willie Taggart is when Jameis was here visiting a few weeks ago.
Spring game.
And he was in town. He stayed later. I don't know, you guys may have talked about it, but he stayed like later than he was supposed to. He was supposed to get out of town. He stayed later to help them recruit that big-time kid.
Kayvon Thibodeau from
Thibodeau.
California.
Jameis stayed longer to recruit him, and what Aunt Winston told me was he said Jameis was leaning on him really hard. I mean, Jameis wants them to get that kid. And so...
And Jameis's family stayed here.
Oh, yeah,
for the game, exactly. That wasn't the coach that their baby boy played for. I mean,
no, exactly. And so I just think that you can put it together in different ways, and you can have, if people want to rally behind you, then it's not necessarily just about Willie. It's about what he kind of, and I think that's what's cool here. I mean, Charlie Ward coming back and Dion and all these guys. I mean, it's going to be more than just Willie, I think.
Yeah, see, let's not go down the Dion path. I mean, these kids, no, because this
they see him on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I think uncles and dads need to tell them who Dion is.
As a player, probably, but they see him on TV. Just like don't you think players know who Charles Barkley is? I mean, they don't remember what he played like, but they know he's a funny guy on TV.
He thinks he's a funny guy on TV. Well, I don't know how
Dion's
much pull
probably the funny guy in a sharp suit.
The sharp suit, slick talking kind of guy. Yeah. I mean, that's valid. I mean, and I will say this. There's the one kid who's committed, Dante Lucas, just a freaking mountain of a human being. Goes to IMG Academy. He's like a top 5 offensive guard.
What's funny, in the still picture you guys tweeted, I'm guessing you did, like a still picture. Mm-hmm. I was like, I didn't like him, like he's not in great shape. But then like on the video when he's moving around, it's like, dude, that dude is a house.
I didn't even realize. I think he looked at his pants halfway down. Dude, like he looked
a little sloppy in the picture, but when on the video, it's like, dude, that dude's a monster.
Yeah. Well, the way it works when you're out there filming video, you need to have your subject with the sun hitting on them, right? Because if the sun's not hitting on them,
can't see the face.
Yeah, it'll look like it's like FBI informant video. So. And then at the same time, I've got the camera with the sun behind me, so the camera's hitting my monitor.
So you can't see it all.
I can't see a lot of things. I'm like, am I in focus? I'm in focus, so I don't notice all the other things. And I was looking,
pants down.
Yeah, but thankfully the video didn't have that. But the photo I snapped, I'm like, man, it looks like we just pulled him off like the commode. Like, hey man, talk to us real quick. But that kid, his plan is to actually enroll early. He wants to enroll early, and he said, I want to enroll early. I want to get my clock started. I want to get to the draft. So I mean, the guys that are focused on, that just don't want to come and listen to cool music and bounce around at practice. I'm saying that tongue in cheek. Those guys are gravitating towards the program too. And that kid is the most firm probably commitment that Willie's gotten so far.
Yeah, and look, part of recruiting is evaluating talent. Part of it also is evaluating the kid and what their motivations are and what their interests are. I will say that this, it's funny to watch the different things, like the pendulum swing different directions. Towards the end of Coach Bowden's tenure, when they had recruited a bunch of California kids and kids from Texas, the Lamarck trio, and all those guys. And one
South Florida, we missed out on South
Florida.
And
that's one of the things that the realization I think Coach Bowden had towards the end of his tenure was we probably got too far away from Florida. That we started listening to these kids in faraway places, and they don't know what Florida State means. They don't know what Florida State Miami means. So, but then Jimbo was at first was very much Florida. Then he kind of started going off the Virginias, the New Jerseys, the Marylands, and so which is fine. I mean, it's just funny how it kind of cycles. Well, now Willie Taggart's starting off the bat with all these California kids. We don't know how that's going to work out. I mean, Oregon. I mean, they've got some kids from Washington, faraway places that are really talented, but it's a different style of football. It's a different style of life and culture and all that. So. It's going to be. I mean, it's at least going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be different. You're right. There's a lot of unknowns, but I think it's going to be fun to watch it all play out.
Let's wrap this up. About 2 minutes left here. Ira. I'm going to, since you gave us that exclusive insight into that 2012 class, there was a question. I remember I looked on the Renegade Express. Hop on over to warchant.com. Get your free 30-day trial, Warchant 30, if you're not already a member. But if you are, on the Tribal Council, there's the Renegade Express thread. We'll get to that on Friday. Hopefully Corey will be here, and if not, we've got the best pinch hitter in all the games.
Rusty Staub coming off the bench.
I don't want to make your plans for you already in advance, Ira, but you'll have to be here for it. But I saw one of the questions. I did take a sneak peek, and one of them kind of asked, do you think that this is going to be part of the sort of the platform or the foundation of Willie's, rebuild or retool here? Is that he's going to keep going on these West Coast kids, or is it just kind of,
a stopgap or
but just kind of like I did put all this
connections.
Yes, I think that I'm of that belief. I think it's he put in. Granted, he was there for 1 year, but I think he probably planted enough seeds where it's like, let me see if I can harvest something from this. But I don't see him because I'm sure some of the pull obviously come to Florida State is, and I think he even made maybe a comment not off the record, but like off camera one time about, it's nice not having to hop on a plane to recruit all the time. So I don't see that being part of the sort of the base mix, the base formula for what he's going to build here. I don't think so. Yeah,
no, I'm with you. And there'll be special cases. There was the kid a couple years ago that Jimbo tried to get, that DB that committed on.
Adoree Jackson.
Adoree. That one?
Yeah. Or Amon Marshall.
That's what I'm thinking of, Amon Marshall. And, so there'll be those select cases where a kid says, no, I really, really am interested. I really want to come there for whatever reason, and you believe it, and we'll invest the time and effort. But, I don't think it'll be as widespread as it's been right now. It's been because he has those resources. Yeah. And he's got David Kelly coached over there. They've got a couple other assistants that have some experience there. But I also think as your staff evolves, as your staff changes, like a guy like Walt Bell is really strong in Atlanta, I guess, and probably up in the Maryland, D.C. area. But, if he leaves, then if the next guy is...
Already talking about him leaving, Ira? You're already talking about him leaving? Come on.
I'm just saying, as your staff changes, that kind of sometimes affects who you go after.
We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. Corey won't be, so I'll try to guilt Ira into coming back. Leave positive feedback.
I'm coming back anyway. I feel bad for Corey.
We do.
Thinking about Corey.
Get better, Clark. CC, a.k.a. C-Dog, a.k.a. C-Nasty. He's Ira Maslin. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a great one.
The Sod Cemetery, Osceola and Renegade, and of course, the War Chant. These are great traditions known to all Seminole fans. If you are a card-carrying, garnet and gold-wearing Nole, don't you deserve a site that is truly dedicated to covering FSU sports? Warchant.com staff has over 50 years of experience covering the Seminoles. Warchant.com is the only FSU outlet with a full-time recruiting analyst in Tallahassee. Plus, it's the only site with a full-time videographer and a daily podcast, 100% dedicated to FSU sports. Why act like Gators and settle for second best? Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.